Well, well, well. What have we here? Another freaking Tuesday without Andor, y'all. But we're gonna have to freaking make do. It's okay, because we have not done any coverage of The Last of Us, so here we are doing it in time for the show to be finally over. Finally is not the right word. It came and went within the blink of an eye. Only 7 episodes this time instead of the 8 that we had in season 1. So all this is to say hello. In spite of it not being an Andor Tuesday, once again, we're just gonna have to make do with that being the norm from here on out. But it is still Tuesday nonetheless, folks. So get the frick up, y'all. It's time for Dork Discourse. Thank you so much to everybody who's been holding down the fort in the early gang. I want to give a shout out to Joshua real quick for him if he tunes in on an eventual rewatch. I think I read his message, his member chat, that he had not yet seen the show, so he will not be present here. Thank you, Josh, if you are watching this in a rewatch of sorts, for being a member for 44 freaking months. Holy shnikes. Can't stay for this stream because I haven't yet watched any of season 2, so I will watch this later. Take care, my friend, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you, Josh, and hopefully next time we will be discussing a topic that will not spoil anything for you. And that goes for everyone. Yes, there will be spoilers. I tried to disclaim in both the title and description. And fear not, also, my wingman will be here. Tom is just a few moments behind. It won't be long now before our co-pilot joins us. But thank you all so much for joining. I know this is not Star Wars related, but it is Last of Us related. And I have not done any coverage or any content or any sort of reviews or commentary or even a single stream. We've barely even mentioned it on previous episodes of Dork Discourse past few months because Andor kind of took over our lives. And The Last of Us premiered like right before we were going to Japan, so we were behind a few weeks. We were backlogged. So here we are, remedying that just in time for the finale, which came out this weekend. So before we get into it, shout out to our OGs, everybody here. We got Daddy Josh, Stanley's Chopper, Sean, who I saw in the early gang with Charlie, of course, Sal, I believe I saw my Queen Alice, Chris House Inc., LOL Caver. Thank you all so much for being here. Jason Olsen, just making sure. Emery's, who I think I saw your chat earlier, Emery's, that you might disagree with me, which I will say up front is okay. So yes, if you could garner from the title, I'm just gonna get it out into the open, y'all. I was not too happy with this season. I'm so sorry. We'll get into it, but all of this is to disclaim, because you guys know I usually try to focus on what I like, you know, what I can take away that I enjoyed. And I went into this season, I gave it every benefit of the doubt, y'all. I held out for as long as I possibly could, trying to keep an open mind, trying to just be like, okay, hold on, let them get it together, just wait until you ingest, you know, the full season in its entirety before you jump to any conclusions and write this season off. But unfortunately, it was pretty out of the gate that I was not vibing with it. So that is to say, though, you guys know I never care if you disagree with me or have a complete opposite end of the spectrum interpretation or take. Like, I want that to be the discussion. I think it makes for more fun discourse, more fun discussions and debates here. And it's rare, like, this is going to be a rare evening because you guys know it's not often. I don't think I have disliked something, a season of television, this much since it's been years. I'd say maybe Game of Thrones finale. Now, granted, this is not in the same boat as that. What's up, Ronan? Thank you for being here. And Mr. Magic as well. I want to play the games, though. You should, Mr. Magic. If there is one takeaway that you get from this evening, please do yourself the privilege, the gift. Gift yourself the experience of the games. Because Season 1, I think, was a phenomenal adaptation. I have no qualms about Season 1. And I think that everything that they actually added... Told y'all he wouldn't be long. Oh, and also thank you, Chris.
Good afternoon, evening, everybody.
Thank you to Chris for also helping me segue to another disclaimer I wanted to put out there. Just blanket right out of the gate. No hate to Bella. I know that they have been public enemy number 1, unfortunately. Hollywood's most targeted actor. Unfortunately, the online hate campaign against Bella Ramsey has been...
like Rachel Zegler.
It's atrocious against both of them, and it's fueled with misogyny, and Bella Ramsey, I believe, is non-binary. You know, there is a lot of unnecessarily targeted hate towards them. and they do not deserve a smidgen of it. So I would hope it would go without saying. Absolutely none of my critiques, you guys know, any qualm I ever have is not directed personally towards the performers or actors. In fact, that is the only saving grace of this season, I think, for me, is the performances. They got a script, they got some questionable writing choices, some severe deviations from the character development of the games that made the second game in particular so special. And the actors did what they could, and they said, you know what, we're going to take this and we're going to cook. And that's what they did. They did everything they could, and the performances are the saving grace of this season, and that extends to Bella Ramsey, who I think did the best that they freaking could with what they got. So, to summarize, I'll do a quick little summary. That is for me, my pro of this season. I think the performances were still on par, still fabulous, still really great. And I did love that they fleshed out, like, Dina. I think Dina stole the spotlight in many ways, which I know a lot of people were not happy about because it's meant to be Ellie's story and Dina's a sidekick, and there were many times where it felt like Dina was the one taking the lead in this season, which again is a bit of a deviation from the game. But I still thought she cooked. That actress, I'm in the pre-stages of the clutches of an not an obsession, but you know when you discover somebody's work that you really like, or a band or an artist or actor, and you want to just go and watch everything they've ever done. She cooked. I want to go see her. I've never seen her in anything else. I want to like.
She's Dora.
Yeah, I've never seen
her cosplaying as Padme on Instagram the other day.
I did see that. She slayed. She freaking is gorgeous. She cooked. She was amazing. Bella Ramsey obviously was amazing. Everybody, I thought everyone. Caitlin Dever. I'm sorry, I'm definitely not pronouncing her last name properly, but for the brief bits of Abby that we had, like, I'm ready to see her take over season 2. So, perk of this season is the actors. They carried it.
Isaac.
Isaac. Oh god, this is going to be so convoluted, so not coherent. I should have really actually orchestrated my thoughts because I have a lot. But I'll start with that being my summary. I think the acting was my favorite part of this season. It was the best part to start with something positive. And unfortunately, the negatives are, it just was not up to par with the game, and the things that they altered and changed, I think, weakened the story. Would you like to give a quick summary? Because I think you are more generous towards this season than I was. We would finish every episode and I would be like, I hated that. I don't know why they would do that. And you were, I think, maybe more open. I think we were equally open-minded, but you seemed to rock with some of the changes they made until, I don't know, the finale. I don't know.
I mean, we watched the finale last night, and as soon as it was over, I just got up and went to bed. I had to wake up early this morning.
True.
So, the two of us have not discussed our thoughts really at all after watching the finale last night. First off, shout out, we saw Craig Mazin on the street on Saturday.
We did, unbeknownst to me.
He just walked past. We were out to brunch with some friends, and Craig walked past. So, Craig, if you're watching,
we still love you.
Great breakfast choice, brunch of choice. It's a good spot.
Yes.
So that was kind of cool. Really saw the executive producer, so that was cool. But yeah, I think I also have not seen a lot of the online thoughts
because we've been so behind.
I don't really know what any of the general thoughts are. So I came in and you were saying that people are
actually
tearing to shreds I don't want to see it.
You don't want to see IMDb scores or ratings or anything? Okay.
Apparently people are tearing to shreds Bella Ramsey based on what you were saying when I walked in.
Oh, well, you know how it is. It's just targeted hate campaigns. It's not valid or actually people are just angry. It's the same reason people sent death threats to the Abby voice actress, because they're pissed about a character and they can't mentally separate or differentiate a real life human being who's an actor just doing their job playing that character and then the writing for that character, so they just take it out on Bella Ramsey. That seems to be the extent. Same way that the voice actress for Abby was getting death threats, and it's like she's like, I'm just doing my job. Take it up with the writers, take it up with the writing room. And so that's, I think, there is a separate disdain hate campaign that is not warranted for any reason beyond freaking misogyny, of course. And
Well, I was going to say that I think that Bella, of the performances, someone in the chat, I think, summarized it perfectly. Like, she did a great job at younger Ellie in season 1, but this Ellie, like, Ellie on the Hellbent campaign, I think it was not the same.
but it was the
And
writing.
I think this season, it felt like a significant drop from the performances that we got in season
Well,
1.
not having Pedro
With
Pascal.
Bella, no. Well, the Pedro stuff, I think Pedro did a fine job. And
yeah.
Dina was fantastic. Tommy, good, sure. But there was a lot of, particularly in the finale, like some of the, like, it felt very rushed, and I think the writing was trying to put a lot of dialogue to fill in the gaps of stuff we got in the game that the game didn't have to do because you actually saw it happen.
Yes. Is it just
So
me? I
think
feel
that
like
so much happened in Seattle. Like, there was a lot of stuff, like the bulk of the game, the second game, takes place in Seattle. The bulk of this season took place in Jackson. And if we've got like 7 hours of up to Seattle day 3 with Ellie, I mean, the game is like 20 hours long, and you've got like 10 with Ellie, and then like 10 with Abby. And the bulk of that 10 is Ellie in Seattle. And the bulk of Abby's 10 is Abby in Seattle. There's a couple hours of Jackson up front, and then a couple hours of can I say it? Should I say it? I'll just say it.
There's
Santa
spoilers.
Barbara after Seattle. But the bulk of that 20 hours, let's say, is 16 hours of Seattle, 8 of Ellie in Seattle, and 8 of Abby in Seattle. And the show, we got like 3 of Ellie in Seattle, because the first 2 episodes were Jackson. The first 3 episodes
2.5.
The first 3 episodes
because middle of episode 3 is when they decide to go.
were Jackson, and then
we had a
there's 7
flashback episode.
Flashback. So 3 of the episodes were in Seattle.
I'm sorry,
So we got, so they a lot of the world building and the character building that we get in the game, like, was explained and covered with walking dialogue, it felt like, in the second season, versus in the game you're put through the ringer to feel the character's emotion and stress and fright, because you're struggling through what they go through in Seattle with the characters. Now granted, I initially also had a feeling of like, oh well, they just like totally glossed over like Isaac and the wolves and the scars, but in the reality they didn't, because the reality, when you play the game, you're Ellie, and the scars are very, you have to run through the forest in the park, which they did in the show, but you don't really get the backstory of what's going on between Isaac and the wolves and the scars until you're Abby. So they did actually, in hindsight, give us a little bit more of that in this season, but at the cost of the like the struggles that Ellie and Dina, like, they have to do, like escape the wolves, and like they do a little bit, but like it felt significantly less of a struggle than what they had to do in the game. And granted, it's never going to be as in-depth and as long as the game, which makes sense. And I will say that Abby's portion of the game is actually, I think, the more gut-wrenching, emotional, tragic part of the game. The stuff that Abby goes through in her path is more intense and tragic than what Ellie has to go through in Seattle, which is crazy. So I am looking forward to what Abby and Isaac and the scars and the war that happens on the island that they teased us with, and the kid scars. Everything that happens with that is very, very good, deep, tragic, morally conflicting stuff that we are going to get in the next season. So I'm very excited for that. But yeah, the like Bella Ramsey conveying the like crazy conflict and brutality that Ellie in the game has to give and go through in a much shorter, condensed time frame, mainly through dialogue and not actions, is like ultimately the biggest difference between seeing the story play out in the television show format versus the game format. And your other point was the changes they made. There were a lot of changes to what happens in this adaptation of season 2 of the second game than even what we got in season 1 of the show. There were changes in season 1. There were definitely changes, but it was more additions. I mean, Bill and Frank is technically a change to what happens when they interact with Joel and Ellie, but like we knew that Bill was gay and had this gay partner, and then the gay partner died. They totally changed how it happened, but like that context was basically the same. That's probably the biggest change that they did in season 1. It also the Raiders was in Kansas City versus Pittsburgh, but it was essentially the same. Sam had disabilities. He didn't have any disabilities in the game. He's blind and well, he's not blind. He's deaf in the show. He was not deaf in the game. Outside of that, most of it was pretty much the same through the end of it. I mean, the monkeys in Colorado, and then the cannibals, and then the flashbacks. And then the ending, like that was all pretty much the same with the game versus there was a lot different in season 2 here.
Oh,
I've been talking for like 15 minutes, so
it's all right. I'm trying to interact with the chat as we go off on our tangents, but I think for me, it seems like this season suffered from all of the deviations and alterations that I think they tried to add and change to mirror what they did in season 1, because the additions and things that they tweaked in season 1 heightened and added to it. And yeah, that Bill episode, it won an Emmy. I'm pretty sure that episode, the addition of you see the origin story of the cordyceps, and that they are essentially being advised, awesome. Yeah, like that you have to freaking nuke this whole city or else the whole world is gone or goodbye, good night. Everything that they added and changed about season 1, I think heightened, elevated it, and they were still able to achieve the whole arc of the game and accomplish the whole story, and you didn't feel like anything was left out or lost or missing or rushed. I thought the pacing was so much better. Season 2, granted, I went into it, obviously I was excited. I need to disclaim, because I know I'm about to rip into this. I was so excited about the prospect of the challenge of how they were going to tackle the behemoth that is the second game. Obviously accepting that it's going to have to be split up and they're not going to be able to achieve the full, the full arc, the full story. Sean, thank you so much. Before I continue, 19 months as a sub member. Let's go. Almost 5 years now. That's freaking crazy.
Sean.
I am grateful to you both. Got bad news that someone I knew unexpectedly passed, so I may not be as active tonight. Don't worry about that, Sean. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry to hear
Sorry
that.
for that, Sean. Sorry to hear that.
Not ever feel like you have to be active. Much love to you and you as well, Sean. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry to hear that. And so it seems like they were trying to kind of match what they achieved with season 1 with these things that they changed and tweaked by like, okay, let's add more. Let's create this whole new character of Gail, who's Joel's therapist. I thought, unfortunately, I love that actress. I thought her arc was entirely unnecessary. Like, took too much away from the story. It's like, unfortunately, some of the best parts of the season for me were what you guys are saying, the scenes with Isaac and the little teases that we got of the conflict between the wolves and the scars. Every time we were in Seattle and they gave us a peek into what was happening behind enemy lines in the wolf camp with Isaac, those were the best parts of this season. I think the best thing that they added was his origins of how he betrayed Fedra.
Yeah. And which I didn't realize in the moment, but in the game, it literally hints at that happening, because in the game, when you first get to Seattle, if you just go exploring, you find that armored van, and you go in there, and it's just a bunch of bodies in there.
Yeah, I didn't notice that either.
These people got cooked.
Yeah.
And literally, they took that moment.
Someone cooked here.
And
gave the origin story.
Isaac cooking Josh from Drake and Josh.
Oh, yeah. Throw back to that. Oh, my God.
So, I mean, that part was like, yeah, the Isaac stuff and seeing the backstory of what's going on with the scars, like, but even in the game, like the second game, like you hit this crescendo of Ellie's story, and they end up killing a lot of people, and then it ends with Abby coming into the theater, and then it cuts to Abby, and in that moment you're like, what is going on? I have no desire to play as Abby. Why am I playing as Abby? But then you start getting into it, and then you're learning more about all these things that have been going on in Seattle, that it's just been like blinders for Ellie, because she's just so tunnel focused on Abby. Then you get this full story of what all these characters or other characters are going through in Seattle, and Isaac and the scars, and then it turns into a literal war. And it just continues to escalate. So the story of the second game, of that escalation and seeing like Abby's side, is very, very
because that's
powerful.
That is the whole emotional journey and moral of the game, and that's why I think I have come to admire and like truly respect how bold the second game was, because you're coming off of a decade waiting to get back in the saddle and play as Joel again, and then hey, what? He dies within the first few hours of gameplay, brutally, might I add. So Abby becomes enemy number 1, and you might as well be Ellie. You're bloodthirsty. You're coming for blood. You're ruthless, and you go through. The whole point of the second game is that it plants you in that position to be so bloodthirsty, fueled for revenge, like, we're gonna freaking avenge him, let's freaking tear this place apart. And you go on this rampage, and then it forces you to look at it from the other side, and the whole time you're fighting it, you're like, no, I don't want to freaking see this from Abby's POV, we hate her. All of that is meant to be this emotional journey and reckoning to realize, oh my God, we're no better than her. And you see the logistics and the reasoning and the justification for the things that she has done. And you go through that whole journey. At the end, you undertake all of that revenge and realize all too late that you have become a monster. And you are no better than all the people you're out here trying to kill in the name of revenge. And would Joel have even wanted that? If I were to ever lose you, I'd surely lose myself. That is the whole premise. Ellie loses who she is and becomes this monster.
But that doesn't convey through in the show nearly as well as it does in the game.
No, that's what I'm saying, because they're spoon feeding it. The whole city council meeting of trying to rally Jackson to even get permission to, that does not happen in the game, y'all. Ellie's just scoots out in the night. She and Dina piece the frick out.
And Tommy goes first. Tommy leaves too. But
yes.
Tommy's soft in the show.
There's nobody there.
He's like, oh yeah, we gotta listen to the council, and he doesn't even go in the show
until they have no choice. Until they force their hand.
Until he's randomly there.
But that's what I hate. That is what I'm struggling to grasp about what is their reasoning for altering this so much, because that is the best part of the second game. The harrowing realization that you've just committed all of this bloodthirsty, homicidal, harrowing atrocities in the name of revenge, and then you're reeling from the fact that you have lost everything, and that Ellie has lost even her own soul. She has traded her soul for this. And you take, that's the whole moral. It's this whole realization, this epiphany of, oh my god, revenge is never worth it. The season, excuse me, it's spoon-fed that message right out of the gate before she even set out. Some of the citizens of Jackson were like, revenge is bad. Revenge bad. That's it's such a shame. I think that's just for me what the hardest thing to grasp of this season. It's like spoon feeding. It's literally handing the audience every single moral of the game that you don't discover until the end. You don't go out on this revenge tour thinking revenge bad. You're freaking like, Ellie, we're gonna get to see out and we are gonna kick their asses. And then it's only after all that you realize the weight of the message, because you've lost yourself with her at the end. She doesn't go into this with anybody preaching to her that revenge is a lost cause and there's no winners in revenge. It's a shame that this show aired alongside Andor, which I think has just succeeded in the complete opposite when it comes to, you can have a dialogue heavy show still that conveys so much between the lines and in the subtext that's not spoon feeding you the literal moral of the story to the viewer. You piece things together in Andor, and that's what's so good about The Last of Us Part 2. You're piecing it together in spite of every fiber of your being fighting against, you just freaking hate Abby and you want her to die, and then at the end you're like, oh my god, I'm a monster. I'm so corrupted by this, blinded by this. If you were to live in Abby's shoes through all of this, if The Last of Us Part 1 were to have been Abby's story and then Ellie came in the picture, you'd be viewing her as the villain. Like, that's the whole best part of the experience of the game and the show. I just think, again, to point to like Andor versus the writing in this season, I'm just struggling to understand why they've chosen, because again, it has nerfed Ellie's character. To your point, like it and this is the last thing I'll say and then you can go on. I think it's because there was so much backlash to the second game. Because like I just said, y'all, it is a bold, there's crazy decisions. There's obviously the crazy initial tragedy of Joel dying. Like, you lose interest.
But that's the you don't lose interest. You don't lose interest. I
lost a little bit.
That's because that never has made sense to me. But the second game is purely from Ellie's perspective, and then it is purely from Abby's perspective. This show is
intermingling them.
Is very first off, the opening shot of the show is Abby's perspective. You see Abby as the first thing in the show. And then you get Joel's perspective, and you get Tommy's perspective, and you get Gail's perspective, and you get Eugene's perspective, and you get Tommy's wife Maria's perspective. And you get Abby's perspective. Like, it's told from so many different points of, and Isaac's perspective. It's told from so many different points of views, versus the game is very much you're Ellie and it's Ellie's world, and you're going through this experience as Ellie. You have no idea about, well, that's not true. In the game, you do play as Abby for a bit, leading up to her rendezvousing with Joel. So there is that. But when you see Abby, you're like, who is this? Who is this?
You have no idea her intention.
They don't even show you the names. You don't know what they're doing, but you know that they are, oh my God, it's a whole city. Like, you get the teases that they were looking for Jackson. It's like they give you that piece, but then you don't know what their motives are. You don't know anything. Versus this show opens up with, oh, it's this girl, and we're literally going to we're going to find Joel, and we're going to kill him.
Complete opposite.
In the first episode of the show, like, they set that, oh, we're going to go to Joel, and we know that there's these people that are trying to go on a revenge tour to kill Jill. So it's way less of an emotional gut punch when it actually happens, because it's so heavily foreshadowed. Granted, we also knew what was going to happen because we played the game, so there's definitely some bias there. We are not coming into it cold turkey. There's plenty of reactions out there on the internet of people very, very strongly reacting to the second episode of this show who had no idea it was coming. So I am certainly not sitting here trying to say that the show, there was no emotional punch of the show, because clearly there was for everybody. Anybody who didn't know what was going to happen,
oh god,
clearly was still struck emotionally by what happened.
Correct.
So that's not what I'm saying. But the viewer, the audience perspective in the game, you have no idea that it's coming until it happens. The show, they plant that seed immediately, and that is the foundation of the second season of, oh, don't forget Joel did this, and now these people are going to go kill him for it. And then in an hour and a half later, it happens.
Yeah.
And then we get the whole town's perspective. How does the whole town react? How does the council react? How does Maria react? How does Tommy react?
The one...
Versus the game, it's just Ellie. It's all Ellie, and Ellie is, we're going, and then Tommy says, just give me a day, and then he goes, but you don't see him, you don't hear him say he's going. He just takes off, and Ellie finds out that he's gone, and then now that's even more motivation for Ellie to go, and then Ellie and Dina go off, and then it's just Ellie and Dina. It's just Ellie and Dina finding their way in Seattle and dealing with the things, and then eventually they're basically trying to find Tommy, and they're trying to find the different wolves. And then eventually Jesse does show up, so that's not new. Ellie goes after someone she thinks is Tommy, but then it's actually Jesse, and then they reconvene. So like at the end, the people who were in Seattle in the game are in Seattle. It ends basically the exact same. But the build up was there's so many other things that were taking away from Bella's opportunity to get the audience invested in what's going on in Ellie's head. I
will say, I think for me it came around in the finale because I had a pit in my stomach. I was terrified of her and for her in this week's final episode.
Ellie?
Yes, mainly because you know what she's gonna go do at the aquarium, like bracing for that scene and the revelation that she's about to commit perhaps her most atrocious, crime of murdering a pregnant woman. I had a pit in my stomach, and I was, especially after her altercation with, well, that was completely changed too.
They took away from it with the decision.
Stripped that again as well. I know. What are they?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm trying to understand the logic because, and I say this as a female audience member, obviously. Writers, you do not have to be afraid. It seems like so many of their alterations this season are coming from a fear of they don't want the audience to hate Ellie or Abby. Hence why, because some of the retaliation from the game, as I was mentioning, the Abby voice actress was receiving death threats, and she had just literally had her an infant child and was fearing for her life. Like, I think a lot of that they were trying to remedy and prevent that being the case for Caitlin here, embarking on the live action version of this character. Hence why they made that ultimate deviation and introduced Abby right out of the gate, made her intentions plain and clear, and made where she was coming from evident as could be. Like, oh, she's out for revenge too. She was severely wronged by Joel. Kind of to damper any sort of hate you might have for her, or prevent the storm of hatred for her brewing. But same for Ellie. It's like they're afraid to... You don't have to be afraid to have female characters who are flawed, who are having female rage, who are bloodthirsty, like cutthroat.
they've showed it. Abby, the actual scene with Abby and her getting some golf reps in was more brutal than in the game.
Yeah, no, but
And
for Ellie specifically
in the hospital with Nora, they showed more
and
in
that
the
was
show
the best
than
part
the game.
of the show. That
So
was one of the best parts of the
they've taken
season.
those two big moments and amplified them in the game. So I don't think your take that, oh, the writers are afraid to have
No, I think they
flawed
are.
female characters.
I think they are with Ellie.
They took those moments and ramped them up, but they took away. I mean, we haven't seen Abby's story yet, but they took, at least for Ellie, the crescendo of those moments and all the little things she does in the game that build up to that tragedy, and by focusing on other people's POVs, yeah, we get that one moment, but the game is 10 hours of that. It is 10 hours of that with Ellie feeling that and getting a sense for that with the lines and the actions that we don't get nearly the same amount of in the show.
In terms of the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's fair.
But the moments that we got, the main moments, are like arguably more intense and more violent than the game.
Well, what I'm saying is
There's still golf though. Abby still likes golf. She still plays golf.
I'm saying they're already, I think we can talk about the finale, the biggest change being in The Last of Us Part 2, the game. Ellie ruthlessly kills Mel, Owen's pregnant girlfriend, before even realizing she's pregnant. And none of that happens with her trying to have a cesarean, any of that, none of that happens. It's not an accident. It is not an accident by any means. And she only realizes, what she's done when it's all too late.
Yeah.
In the finale, they turn it into an accident, and she was already kind of faltering even before that by expressing to, Dina. It's again, it goes back to the spoon feeding of, I tortured Nora and I liked it. Yeah, we saw that she liked it. That was Bella Ramsey. Holy frick, Bella Ramsey peak performance in that moment, because that's the best parts of the game. You've seen Ellie grow up, and you are so attached to her that you don't want her to go over the ledge, but you have no choice because you're obviously operating her in the game, but you're out for blood too, so you're like, frick this, we're gonna get them. And then you realize, of course, that you're just as deranged for having those thoughts and for being so blinded by revenge and hatred. But I feel like that alone, making that, I think Mel's death in the game is when it really hits you of, what have these hands wrought? Like, what have I done? And it's
But
not
it's
an
more
accident.
powerful in the game. So Ellie just straight up kills her.
Yes.
And then decides that she's pregnant. But this is even like this one, now it's an accident. But then two, Mel is begging her
To get the baby
to do the
out?
surgery, and she's just sitting there not doing it. Like if you're gonna realize that you are in the wrong, which she clearly did, why are you not gonna scramble to do it? Why is she not gonna listen to it?
Would you lock in that moment? She was in shock.
What do you have to lose? You already killed her. Now you're not going to respect her dying wish. Clearly you clearly are upset about it. Clearly you regret it, and it was an accident. But you're not going to respect her dying wish and try and amend your guilty conscience in that moment. Like that I don't understand that at all. Like if she had tried and actually attempted to do it, and then like salvage the baby, or even failed to salvage, but at least made the attempt to do it, then it's like, okay, that's a change that warrants the accident, so that moment could happen where she now, okay, Ellie's character has taken a step to redeem the actions driven by her revenge. But she didn't. She just sat there, and it was like a moment of cowardice. And she just killed this and had regret, but then sat there and didn't actually do anything. And
she didn't know what to do. I agree, Emery's like, that's a harrowing. She didn't know what to do. And
he
also,
said, make the cut.
Would you want to do that? Would you? But I wasn't too fazed by that.
Just draw a circle and pull it out and yank the baby out and cut the cord. She said, make it. You can do it in one incision, and then you pull the baby out and you cut the cord. Sure, she'd never done it before.
I agree, Kronberger. That was brutal. You know, Mel's dying words. I know we've been ripping into it, but I will say that for me, as I said, they still were able to achieve that. You feel Ellie going over the edge, especially with having all of this following an immediate interaction with Jesse, basically pleading with her, this is selfish. I never voted for this to begin with. Like, how much? When are you going to cross the line? How much blood is enough? When are you going to be quenched? And I think that they, like, yes, here I am saying, don't be afraid to have these flawed female characters. I'm saying that in the vein of they're painting it as an accident, as opposed to, no, it was very intentional that she unknowingly murdered this pregnant woman, but
she knowingly murdered her. She knowingly murdered her.
She didn't know she was pregnant, though. She didn't know she was pregnant, but she, yes, very much intended to kill her. Yeah, like, none of it was an accident. None of it was a mistake until the last second when it's too late. To have this, and again, that is like a turning point in the game when she does decide, like, holy frick, what the frick have I done? I'm a monster. I'm god awful. But to have that turning point be painted through the lens of an accident, I think just changes it so much. And it's like, they still were able to keep me, like, I'm still afraid of Ellie, and again, afraid for her, of what she's going to do, and to see her descend down this path of ruin that is already costing her, and will continue. She's going to lose Dina. She's going to lose, her and Dina's child. Like, she will eventually lose everything.
Spoilers.
Yeah, well, everyone knows Dina's pregnant.
But they don't know what happens.
Sorry.
To the child.
Sorry. Well,
nothing
happens to the all right. Sorry. This is part 2. All this is to say, that she's signed, sealed, delivered, signed on the dotted line. Sealed her fate in the name of vengeance. And I wish that they had just gone further with that, because Ellie takes it so far in the game, and it's not by accident. It's not a mistake. Avian says it didn't seem like an accident, but she tells Abby that she didn't mean to hurt them. So either she lied or it's just inconsistent. Well, I think that's fair, because I think she was taken aback and was not expecting Owen to pull the gun on her.
Yeah.
And so I think I do believe she had zero intentions of killing Owen and Mel until she had no
Owen
choice.
straight in the forehead, right? Oh, right in the neck.
Yeah. Oh. Ouch, that would hurt. In the game, Owen and Mel both attacked Ellie, so it was slightly different setup with a different payoff. Peace out, Sal. Thank you so much for being here.
Later, Sal. The other thing that Monkey just brought up, Ellie washing up on Scar Island.
I didn't.
There was a lot. I'll start with, I know exactly why they did it, because they needed to tease something big that's to pique the audience interest of what is going to happen in
what's this war
season, what's going to happen in the next season, and what's going on with Isaac and the Scars and this war. In the game, you don't have any idea it's going to be this war or this conflict. You don't know any of that. So they did it to show, to tease that. That's why they did it. And it doesn't technically It doesn't technically deviate from what happens in the game, because in the game Ellie does get on the boat and she goes and then she capsizes, but then it's just like cutscene, and then she's well, no, does she swim? Does she just get out and then she swims? Maybe there's a tiny discontinuity there that I'm not remembering. But anyway, I think to get that same point across, they showed the boats going to the island. So then if you just have her on the boat and then she hears explosions and then turns around and she sees the explosions, you get the same point across that, oh, they went there and they are literally at war with the Scars. But the like her the logistics of her capsizing and then getting all the way over there in like the same amount of time it took that the boats to get there. I was instantly pulled out because I was like, the logistics of like her actually washing up with the boat on that island, like that's a long way to just like float and not drown. That's totally aside the point. But then like to have basically the scene that happens with Abby, spoiler, it probably helps if you say spoiler before you just like say what happens. But like to basically have that scene with Abby, which maybe now we don't even get that scene, which would raise a whole ton of questions on what's going to happen in the next season.
Well, she had the on her throat.
Did she?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Abby has the noose scar on her throat in the finale.
Okay. But yeah, that was like a total like, if the point was like, oh, here's this like war that is happening, the Abby, like the complete cutaway of Ellie's story to go to that island and to go through that, just to have the audience know that they're attacking the island, I think was completely unnecessary and did more harm than good, because at that point Ellie is, oh, it's aquarium, I'm going to the aquarium, whatever cost it takes, and then side quests to the island, and then nothing happens to her literally at all, and then she just goes to the aquarium, like felt like a very big distraction and not required to get the point across of the wolves are attacking Scar Island.
I did see.
Granted, if she doesn't go to the island, you don't know what's on the island.
Yeah.
But
they could
you can
easily.
It's very easy to insinuate, oh, their enemy number one is the Scars, and Isaac is interrogating the Scar, and it's a brutal scene, and he's trying to get information about the Scars. So you know that if Isaac's there, he's probably going after the Scars. And then if it cuts to them boating to this island, and then you see explosions, granted, then it's the logistics of, okay, they just left the dock. Ellie leaves the dock. Now they're already there and they're lighting off explosives. Like, then it's like, okay, how did they get to the island so fast? But I think that gets the point across and doesn't derail Ellie's focus.
I did see somebody say on Twitter, and it had a good point that I think I believe, that whole deviation, that whole little mini side quest of not getting gutted, getting wait, what's that term when your intestines get, hang on,
Gutted seemed pretty good.
no, there's another term for it. Does it mean when your
Gut like a pig?
intestines are, this is not my Google's.
A hernia?
No, what's the word I'm looking for? In a fight. What am I Googling? Y'all, disembowelment. Thank you. Getting I knew there was some. My Google search history. I'm about to be put on a watch list. I just searched what does it mean when your intestines are taken out in a fight. Disembowelment. That mini side quest of avoiding being disemboweled. somebody on Twitter made a good point to show that even after almost dying and being helpless, because that's the whole point of all this, she's already losing everybody and going into the, like, she is on her own and almost dying and helpless.
Yep.
She's not immune from being torn apart. And even after that, like, all it took was one slip up for that to happen and for her to be captured and outnumbered by all of them and almost freaking die. Even after that, she still snapped in and was like, all right, well, I still got to go take out Abby. Like, any normal person might have rallied from that and been like, oh my God, I almost just freaking, I'm helpless. What the frick am I doing? This is a mistake. I got Dina back there. Like, I want to be around for her and her child. Like, all my friends are here. Everyone I love is here. And I almost just freaking died. What would they do without me? I'm going to snap out of this. Holy frick, this was like a warning from the universe intervening.
Yeah, nothing happened with Ellie. There was no change to Ellie's motivation or character.
Exactly, that's the point. To show that she almost freaking died.
She just got a little wet.
Didn't
care. A little more wet than she was already wet.
Didn't care. She would have died there. Nobody would have known where she was. Like, and it doesn't faze her. So I saw somebody justify that being the logic on Twitter. Like, even after having this near-death experience in which she's rendered extremely helpless.
Okay.
It doesn't change her mind. She's still locked in and is like, I don't even care. So it shows that she's willing to freaking, if this costs her her life, if her dying act is to go and save Joel and avenge Joel, not save him, avenge him, she'll do it. Even if it costs her her life. And so it did feel rushed. I think also for me, this is just personal opinion, and I know it's a lot to ask, but I wouldn't have cared if they had spent an extra year and a half in production if we could get the full Abby and Ellie story as one mega season. Because this was only 7 episodes. Okay, so what's wrong if you were to create a season that's 12 episodes? That's not asking much. I know everything is only not even 8 episodes anymore. We can't even get season 1 numbers. What was the logic behind season 1 being 8 episodes? This could have used an 8th episode. I think they could have fleshed things out a little bit more. So I just don't understand. Okay, fair if you want to tackle it. Again, I know it's a behemoth to go from, you know, the first game is much easier to adapt into 1 season of television versus game 2. So I understand. I'm not critiquing the decision, but now in hindsight, I would have been totally fine holding out if they were like, listen, we're gonna fulfill the entire game in 1 longer mega season.
Yeah. Or
even do what shows like Grey's Anatomy do. Other shows that run for like 20 plus episodes a season will have like a mid-season break that's only a few months long. You don't have to wait, like, there'll be a cliffhanger, and then, okay, I just have to wait 4 months, and then I'll get the finale. I think even some shows, I think, like, Stranger Things did that on Netflix a little bit. I know other shows are dabbling in that because people can't. It's hard to wait that long.
Well, especially when this is an incomplete story.
Yeah.
They left on a major cliffhanger, and now it's going to be 2 years until you see that you're going to have to wait another 7 episodes until you actually see what happens. Like that, unless they change it and they show what happens and then you get Abby's perspective, but they're not going to do that because they literally cut back to Seattle Day 1 at the end, which is like what I was saying. That's like the one thing we talked about last night. It's like, well, yeah, they didn't want to leave it off on a cliffhanger. So they showed us Abby at the Seahawks Stadium, the Seattle Sounders Stadium, and it said Seattle Day 1. And so it's like, all right, they set up that the next season is going to be Abby's perspective. But you already know why she did what she did, and you now know that all her friends are dead and she knows about it. So it's totally different lens going into Abby's story than it was in the game. And it's going to be like a 2-year wait to get that story.
Well, we don't know. We could be spreading misinformation.
If they even get the green light to do it.
They have. They just said they need a 4th season. Remember I told you? I think I saw that Craig Mazin said
need a 4th season doesn't mean that there will be a 4th season.
I swear I just read this.
Which means that this next season is going to end off. It's going to just end off in Seattle. It's just going to do Abby's story, and then we're going to see their fight in the theater. We're not going to see anything with Santa Barbara. I think is what that tells to me, is that it's just going to be the ending of Seattle, and then Ellie goes back, and then it'll probably be like, but she's still out there, and then they'll go. Well, they meaning she. And then they'll probably flesh that out, which they totally could, because the Santa Barbara stuff is, again, another whole new faction of people, and really interesting story and where it goes, and it's very cliffhangery where the second game leaves off. So the fourth season is like, yeah, going to that part of the world, and then the country, and then seeing what happens, and then the second half is getting the beginnings of the third game that we don't have yet. Then that could make sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably what they would do, because Craig did say, yeah, we're going to need
Another
a fourth
game.
season to tell the whole story of the second game. Which is it's tough because it's a great story, but that story spread out over potentially 4 years of audience viewing it, if it's 2 years for next season and then another 2 years for the follow-on season. Like, I don't know that story, because there's no real time jumps. It's just Ellie, Seattle, and then the end of the game. Like, it all happens within like weeks or months. But from the audience perspective, it's going to be like 4 years to get that whole story. Like, people are going to be like
Restless.
4 years for this? Like that, like it's great. It's fantastic, and it's a great story, but not getting it, like for the game, you get that story in 20 hours, but you play it. You can play it in 20 hours if you want, of real time. Like you can play it at your own pace, but you're going to get that whole story, and that whole story together is really, really good. But I don't think that it's like if I was just straight up say exactly what the ending is, and that's what you're going to see in 4 years, you'd be like, that's it. I feel like that'd be a lot of the audience. It'd be like, that's it. That's why does it take 4 years to tell that story? Granted, it took them a long time to make the second game.
I still think, regardless,
they made that whole story in the one game.
I think it's an incredible. I think the moral and the revelation in the ending of part 2, the game, is still, in my opinion, one of the best told stories just in general on any medium ever, because it is so bold, because it ruffled so many feathers, like, and every part of you is fighting against what the moral is trying to tell you, and you realize at the very end. And even when you play the game, you're like, there's got to be more. But I think even Neil Druckmann himself has, said that could be a definitive ending, what it is in part 2. And if that is the definitive ending, like, sometimes that is just it, and your world is rocked with this realization that you've lost yourself. Yep. Before we go on too much further, sorry, John Blake, you've been waiting patiently. Thank you so much. If you look at Kaylee Spaney, who played, yes, she was an Ellie in Romulus, and she played Priscilla Presley in her biopic. She looks and acts like Ellie in the game. I've seen so many people on Twitter, like a fan campaign to try to, and don't get me wrong, Kaylee Spaney I think is gorgeous, and I had a mini phase with her too of like, oh my god, I want to watch all the stuff that she's been in. She was also in this show, Mayor of Easttown, on HBO. That's what I first saw her in, and I thought she was awesome in that. And so I've been a fan of hers since before she was, not to be like, I was here before she got mainstream, but I remember seeing her in that show many years ago and really being a fan of hers then. So I also have,
she looks exactly like Ellie.
So, but all of this is to say, I know that a lot of people
she looks exactly
are
like
big we're big proponents for her to play the role or be recast. I think Bella did an incredible job, and again, I was terrified of Ellie at points in the second season, which was some of the redeeming parts for me. I know we've been critiquing a lot and drawing a lot of comparisons between the first game and the second game. you know, season 1 versus season 2 and how it has been altered in this adaptation here. And if it maybe fell flat, and I the title still stands, y'all. I think the impact of the game in part 2 has more weight than what they did in season 2. That's not to say there weren't redeeming qualities, and I think Bella Ramsey was one of them. I love their performance, and I love that they were still able to capture, again, in spite of the ways that they nerfed Ellie. And I know a lot of you guys were saying it in the chat, you know, prioritizing Dina at times. It seemed like everybody was just patronizing Ellie, that she was being, you know, maybe even childish, that everybody else was locked in and she wasn't. And even admittedly at times I was like, this, it feels like Dina is becoming more of a lead. And I feel like, again, all of that was to kind of repair some of the feelings you have in the second game when you go into it thinking, again, you're getting back in the saddle as Joel. You're going to be back with the tag team of the century, Joel and Ellie, and then all of a sudden Joel's cut from the picture and you're like, what the frick? And then you're locked in playing as Ellie, but you're kind of like strangers with Dina in the game. It's like, okay, well, who's this girl? Like, I miss Joel. Not that Dina's not great. And again, I think Dina might be one of the things that's better in the show than in the game. And that's down to the actress, y'all. I thought she freaking, like, took that role and ran with it.
She was, I think that Isabella is probably the standout performer of the show.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
I think she absolutely nailed it.
She, like, took ownership of that character.
Absolutely nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
Pedro, I mean, he was great, but back to when they announced that Pedro and Bella were Joel and Ramsey.
Joel and Ellie?
Joel and Ellie. Ramsey Bolton. Joel and Ellie. It's like the casting, even as Pedro as Joel, was like, huh? Like those two? Like that's like it never really made sense to me, because I would have never thought that either of them would be the two for that role. Particularly Bella. And so that's kind of always been it's watching season 1, I didn't really feel it as much. Season 2, I felt it a lot more. And it was more kind of, it was growing questions on the back of my head, but Dina, not at all. Even Tommy, not at all.
Jesse, I feel like
Jesse
is a highlight as well.
Perfect. I think Jesse's weakest episode was the finale.
Rip.
With a lot of the the dialogue and moments that he had. But yeah, like I think that there's definitely a lot of the cast here that's like was like perfect and nailed their performances.
And I still
think Dina is, I think, at the top.
I think Bella still, for me, by the end of the season, their performance as Ellie, I think, did the best that they could in spite of the nerfing, the limitations that they just implemented with some of the deviations in the writing. And that's no fault, obviously, of Bella Ramsey's. And I still think that they were able to reach some of those harrowing, terrifying levels in Ellie, where you're like, you can see her slipping away into this monster, and it's breaking your heart because you don't want that. And you know Joel wouldn't want that, but she's still dead steadfast. Alice has made it. Thank you so much for joining us, Queen. It's probably the end, but I at least made it. We're still gonna go for a little bit. I feel like we have so much to say because we haven't touched on this show at all this entire season. But yes, well, I do think Dina like stole the spotlight in a lot of this. There were highlight standout moments for Bella Ramsey still as well. And I believe somebody mentioned that they were submitted for an Oscar, Emmy nom, which Emmys are going to be a massacre this year. Yes, and Pedro. Emmys are going to be, I don't know if she was submitted for guest actress or
that's
supporting actress. I'm not, well, let's go see. The Last of Us Emmy noms. or not alms,
but
noms, just
I think
submissions.
Dina and Jeffrey Wright as Isaac were the two standouts for me.
Has set
I mean,
33 Emmy
Pedro
submissions.
is good. It's up there.
Let's see. Pedro will be back in the lead actor category, which landed him an Emmy nom in 2023. Bella Ramsey submitted for Best Actress. Oh, season 2 additions. Isabella, okay, and Young Mazzino, along with returning cast member Gabriel Luna, will be vying for nominations in the supporting actor and actress in a drama series category. Oh, Caitlin Dever as well. Catherine O'Hara, Jeffrey Wright, Tony Dalton, and Joe Pantoliano. I'm sorry, I probably botched half of their last names. I'm so sorry, y'all. Yeah, Jeffrey Wright. We can pivot now. I'm gonna pivot now to some of my favorite things about this season, because I know I've been making a lot of comparisons. But now I'll focus. I did like some of it, y'all. Chop, thank you so much for being here. I still had fun hanging out. Once again, asking to please do another stream this week. Okay, maybe I will. Actually, stay tuned, y'all. Stay tuned. Tomorrow, maybe. Wink, wink, wink. I might be trying something different in the streaming realm. So stay tuned. I hope Andor wins nearly everything too. Potato. If it's Andor versus Last of Us, my money's on Andor.
Yeah.
I hope. I really hope. That's why I was saying it's going to be a massacre this year. It's going to be a crazy Emmys. Sorry, what were you going to say something?
I was going to say that. I mean, I think that
Jeffrey Wright. We were talking about
Jeffrey
Isaac.
Wright might be the standout acting performance in the few scenes we got.
Yeah.
Isabella with Dina was great. But Isaac carried the intensity and the fear of the show. Every scene with him was this man is I will do whatever it takes. And he set that tone, and he had no limits and no filter. That was the source of this in the show. The game, it's Abby and Ellie. And we get it a little bit with Abby, but we see her motivation, so we don't feel it as much with Abby watching the show. With Ellie, we get the one moment in the hospital, but then the rest of the show is her kind of regretting it and being conflicted about it. And even in the moment with Mel and Owen in the aquarium, it's like she's like hesitant, and it's not like she doesn't storm in there and just like execute him, which is basically what she does in the game. In this, there's a lot of back and forth, and you can tell she's conflicted, and then she has serious remorse, which she does in the game. But it's much more drawn out, and so like we get way less of that. Oh wow, Ellie is merciless in the game than the show, but Isaac, we get it with Isaac, and Isaac brings it, and he is ruthless and savage and merciless, intense, and that seeing where that goes in the next season will be awesome to get more Jeffrey Wright Isaac in the next season. That'll be that is the peak thing I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
And Abby with Lev and Yara is but even that's going to be less emotional now, because we go into that and we're like, oh, Abby is the merciless killer, limitless, savage, brutal thing. That's what Abby is in the game. Abby's not that in the show. She's not that. Even after what she did to Joel, you don't have the same feeling of that towards Abby. It's not the same, because you know her motivation. You know why she did what she did. But when you're at this point in the game, you don't know that. You do not know what she did.
I'll refute that.
You don't know her motivation at all.
I'll refute
at
that
all at this point.
A little bit, because during the torture of Joel, they made it abundantly clear that the rest of her group just wants to get the frick out of there. Like, They want no part of it. They're trying not to enable it. They kind of are even disturbed by Abby. And even one of them says, like, Isaac didn't train us to be like this is not who we are. This is not, Isaac would not be proud of this. Even though we see Isaac manifesting his own torture. Like, we see him orchestrating his own harrowing interrogation. But they make a point to say, like, this isn't who we are. And Abby still, she crosses the line. So that's the only thing I'll refute. Like, yes, they've already humanized her a little bit more, but they still made an effort to show that, like, none of her other friends
in the one
were
moment,
in support
in
of
her
that.
most important moment, they brought it. In Ellie's most important moment, they brought it. But it's dampened by all of the stuff around it. Both the emotional tragedy peak of both of those moments for their characters is dampened by everything that's going on around it. To see the show opening up with Abby saying, "Oh, we got to go kill Joel." Okay, we know who Abby is. We know what she's doing. We know she's going to show up eventually, and we know she's going to kill Joel. And then it happens. Okay, well, we knew that was coming. So it's less of a, wow, this chick is vicious, savage, brutal, a murderous fiend with no mercy. Yeah, maybe she still is, but it hits a lot less. And then same with Ellie. It's like, okay, she's conflicted and she's not sure what to do. And Ellie literally already knows, you know that she already knows exactly what Joel did, because you get that in the show. Versus in the game, you don't get that. So you're like, wow, Ellie did all of this and she might not even know. It's like, okay, she's completely locked in. But then you realize eventually that she did know, but that wasn't even a factor. That wasn't a motivating factor for her or a deterrent for her from the audience perspective at all in the game. And then at this point in the game, we do not know what Abby's backstory is at all. We just know that she and her crew went to Jackson, played some golf, and then went to Seattle. That's all we know from the audience perspective. So you're like, you are as the audience hell-bent on Abby being this monster and you're going to go kill her. I didn't feel that anywhere near as much watching the show. Granted, there's bias because I know what happens, but it felt way, it was a much different experience. And I felt like the insane highs of viewer feeling and peaks, it's way dampened.
Well, that's what I was saying.
Way dampened down across the board.
That was my whole point I was making. Don't be afraid, writers. Don't be afraid to have flawed or villainous female characters. Yes, I understand that they probably saw the backlash to Abby's character in the game and wanted to kind of maybe dampen some of that and prevent that from happening. I understand that, but don't be afraid to have a female villain that everybody wants to hate, because then it sets you up for the redemption for her when you get her POV. In the process of trying to, I think, soften the blow and, but no, you like her, feel bad for her, like garner some empathy for her so that you're not totally like she needs to die. Yeah. In the process of doing that, I think they unknowingly nerf the character. And then, like you were saying, kind of eliminate any room for this 360 revelation that you undergo in the game when you develop a whole new sense of respect for Abby and see her through a new light. And you're like, yeah, Ellie's the villain in her story. Joel is the villain in her story, just as much as, you know, Abby is the villain to Ellie. Everybody, depending on the POV. John Blake, I'm so sorry that keep going on tangents right as you super chat. Sorry about that. Let's not forget that Isabella was an alien Romulus, and her role was brutal. Yes, I need to freaking get locked back in and complete the Alien franchise because I really want to watch and react to Romulus. I told y'all, I'm in my like obsession stage with her now. I want to just go watch everything she's ever done. It does ruin the impact of Abby's story. Exactly, film goer. Impact, I think, for me is one thing that's been kind of eradicated in the changes that they've made for season 2. And that, all of that said, I'm really, like I said up front, and like Tom was saying, Jeffrey Wright, Isaac, the stuff that they included with that, I was more locked in every time we flashed over to the Scars and the Wolves. Every scene in Seattle that wasn't with like Ellie and Dina, I was those were my favorite ones
Yeah.
for some reason. Isaac, and of course that obviously comes down to Jeffrey Wright has just incredible presence and is so commanding. And is at first I was nervous because I was like, no, I know him as you know, we know him as Bernard from Westworld, and now we've got him in, you know, the Batman. As what's his face? Oh my God, help me, help. Gordon, you know, like a lovable character that you want to root for. I don't want to see him as Isaac. I'm scared, but he did an amazing job. And his scenes were some of my absolute favorite. And so I'm so excited. I'm glad they teased him as much as they did in this season to kind of prepare your palate for whatever goes down in season 3. Because I feel like when you get the explanation of Isaac's character, that's when you start to realize, like, oh, this is why Abby is the way she is. Like, this is who she's answering to. Bernard and Lord Insidious, yes, Westworld represent. And so I'm very excited to see more of the wolves, the behind the scenes, the POV, because yes, right now you still want all of them to die, but once you get their perspective, that's when it starts to alter your brain chemistry, and you're like, oh shoot. I think it's just so fun to see it flipped the other way around and realize, oh, we're the bad guys now. Like, they hate us just as much as we hate them.
Yeah. Well, again, the flipping to, like, the first time you play as Abby, you're like, why on earth are they doing to us? This is diabolical.
Remember when I was like, I hope this is only for 10 minutes. Yeah. And then it was like 9 hours later.
Oh my God, we're literally the whole second half of this game is Abby. And then you get into the story and you're like you're getting her POV of like what's happening. And she's suffering now way more than Ellie suffered. And the things that she's going through and the things that she does to bring humanity to her character, you're like, okay, you literally cannot argue that. And it's like Ellie, it becomes, it's very powerful, Abby's story. But one of the reasons it's so powerful is because you are coming off of this complete narrow tunneled vision perspective of Ellie, which is completely driven by revenge. But that's not what the show has been. And so I think that inevitably you already feel some, oh, Abby's not so bad. Ellie killed her, or Joel killed her dad. She went and killed Joel. Sure, she did it she probably went a little overboard.
Well, the whole
but then it's like Isaac's like, oh, she's a leader, and she and they even showed scenes with her like being friendly, like even the build up in Jackson, like she wasn't like as like tunnel visioned. I mean, she did go off on her own just like she did in the game. But Abby has been, they've shown a lot more sides of Abby so far in the show than what we've seen in the game before we get what will be season 3, which is Abby's days in Seattle.
Amy, you're cracking me up. Lev just off screen in the theater, like, little do we know. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, excited. I'm excited to meet Lev and Yara in the next season. We already saw the aftermath of the surgical performance that Mel has to do. All those bloody rags in the aquarium.
Yeah. Well, they show that in the game too. You can walk in and it's yeah. And they teased the Sky Bridge. Did you see that?
Oh,
they
maybe.
Teased that when Ellie and Jesse were walking up to the window before they had their little argument and split up. They showed the bridge in the sky that the Scars use.
Oh.
They showed that. You can see it. So that was kind of cool. That was cool.
I guess we'll assume a pole positions. Rate season 2. We'll do our usual 0 to 3, 4 to 6. Mm-hmm. This is all out of 10, of course. 7 to 8, and then 9 to 10 out of 10. You may fire when ready. I think if I had to give a rating, genuinely, I know this is like really harsh for me. I'm so sorry. Like 6.5 out of 10. Maybe 7, because again, performances are still elite. And I think we've also just taken for granted, we're used to it now from season 1, the production design, the sets, you know, costuming, the clickers. You know, we didn't get as many of them, I feel like, in season 1, because again, the real threat becomes the other humans you want to kill. And then the war, you're meeting the Seraphites and the wolves, and you're like, what is this other alternate world out there? Oh, they're disemboweling each other. What the frick is going on? There's new terrors that they're introducing, but even still, you know, the clickers still look crazy. Oh my gosh, I keep forgetting about it, but, you know, huge standout moment is that addition of Jackson being absolutely raided in episode 2. You know, that was crazy. And as much as I'm still trying to grasp, like, I think the whole purpose of that was to set up and further accentuate like how selfish Ellie's quest is. You know, trying to go and do this quest for revenge at a time when like they need all hands on deck to repair the town.
In the game, you don't get any of that.
No, that doesn't happen.
There's no selfish. So you're not feeling bad for Ellie. You're not questioning Ellie's morality. There's no distraction in the first 10 hours of this game.
Nothing holding her back.
It's Ellie and Ellie's going all in. There's none. There's no distraction from any character, from anyone else. It's, okay. Ellie and Dina and Tommy are going to rebel against the town, and Tommy's going to rebel against Maria, and they're literally going to go. And also, Maria in the game looks exactly like Katie Sackhoff. I don't know why that just like popped in my head, but like,
oh, they're similar.
Totally, like literally Katie Sackhoff. Anyway, like it's like, these 3 people are literally going to risk everything to go get revenge on Joel, because that's how much they care about him. But like the fact that it takes so long for them to take action, and they're sitting in the city council meeting versus just going, it lessens they're like, do they really care about Joel? Like they must not care that much about him, because they're just going to sit and dawdle and wait for the politics to play out. And granted, I mean, in the show, the whole town gets decimated by a literal like mass horde of infected. That doesn't happen in the game. So there is more like, sense of community and reeling and all that stuff. But like the fact that they wait and they don't sneak out, and they're like seeking like the proper forums and to get political approval to go on this revenge tour and like go with an army. It's like in the game, they're just like, we're going, and we're not listening to anyone. We're going.
Well, nobody tries to stop them.
And it's like, okay, why are they now letting all this other stuff potentially stop them?
I thought what Avian is saying, this is what I was telling you. I was like, maybe they added this massive life-altering raid on Jackson, and it's going to emphasize how much Joel really means, you know, to both Ellie and Tommy. Like, even after all this, there's no freaking way Maria's going to let Tommy go. He needs to help patch up the freaking town. They got to burn their dead. Like, after all that chaos, there's no way she's letting any of them go. And so I was like, but that's going to fuel it even more, because, you know, Tommy equally gives up the same things in search of vengeance, you know, same with Ellie. Like, I thought what you're saying, Avian, like, I thought his kid and Jackson's raid, that would be what holds him back from leaving. But then when they time jump, right, like it kind of, I thought it was all going to build to like, oh my God, this makes him leaving even more dire, even more selfish and serious and crazy. Like, but then, the time jump, the inclusion of the whole town having a say in it, like, Ellie would not have entertained that. My interpretation of Ellie, she would have snuck out in the night. She wouldn't even have waited for that town council, y'all. Yeah. But I'm trying to just, I think they're doing more to foreshadow and plant the seeds of what the ultimate message of the game is, which is that, you know, revenge is selfish. Revenge will get you nowhere. You know, think about your loved ones and what you do have, you know, put that first and learn to move on and freaking forgive and forget, or else you'll lose yourself in the process. I think you don't get that lesson until really like the end of the game, when you're like, holy frick, that was the freaking moral.
Yep.
Versus they're already kind of teasing it. There's so much more foreshadowing, which is why I know I was saying it feels like they're spoon feeding so much of this to the audience, but that's what the lesson is meant to be throughout the duration of the game. You don't go into Ellie's revenge tour looking for permission from anyone. You don't go into it with a thought at all other than we're gonna freaking kill all of them. You go into it just as bloodthirsty as her. There's not a thought of the moral of this besides we're gonna avenge Joel that's running through your head. You undergo those emotions gradually throughout the game, versus this second season, I think, was introducing more of what the ultimate message is meant to be. But I just think you don't have to. That's why the game was so beautiful. This heartbreaking discovery of what you've just done, everything you've lost, and did it get you anywhere or no? You're worse than where you started. And would Joel have even wanted that?
Well, it got you with less appendages.
Yeah, you have less literally anatomically than what you started with.
It's ironic because she can't play golf.
Oh,
it starts with golf and ends with you lost the ability to golf. Full circle.
The Potato says, one of my favorite scenes in the show, Ellie takes her shirt off and you can see all the cuts and bruises on her, and she tells Dina that she wants to live for her, but it didn't feel earned in the show. I did see somebody saying that they found that scene hard to believe because in reality, we don't see that much action that would warrant. Even I was like, how did she get this banged up? I know she falls down the elevator shaft, but I was like, surely that's not what that did to her. There's just, I feel like I could read into it more, but I feel like I told y'all again, I haven't been this unhappy with a season of a show since probably Game of Thrones finale. And so that's why this is redeeming. It's like, okay, I'm trying to be open-minded. My favorite parts of this season were when we saw behind the scenes, behind enemy lines with the wolves, Isaac, what they continue to do with Abby. I think Caitlyn's great. Like I told y'all before, I love her work. I loved her in Dope Sick, and I thought she did a great job in that show of being...
Dope Sick?
Yes. It's about, what the frick is the pharmaceutical, the drug, OxyContin, and how that essentially has ruined people's lives. It's based on true events. That show is freaking goated, y'all, and she's in it, and she plays a phenomenally flawed, vulnerable character. Yeah, I think she's perfect casting. I think she's doing a great job. And so I'm really excited to see her at the helm in season 2, and to just get the satisfaction if you see all the other pieces of the puzzle being put together. Somebody else was mentioning that, yes, she's got the new scar around her neck as well. Like, she looks bent out of shape too when we see her in the theater. So it's like, all right, what shiz is she gonna go through? So I'm as unhappy as I was with how this season turned out. I'm not losing hope. No PTSD to go. Come on. Well, that's what I'm saying, Charlie. It's like Game of Thrones. I was unhappy, and that was the finale, and I had to just live with it. This, it's like, all right, we still have room for this to breathe. John Blake, thank you. Oh, John Blake says to anybody asking how Abby got that rope burn.
Good.
It was Cyril from Andor. He's now choking people in other shows. He's crossed.
Cyril boy.
He's transcending Disney Plus, and he's going over to HBO Max to go get it.
There's nowhere near enough cereal in The Last of Us.
They need more.
They need more cereal.
Let's assess. Thank you again, John Blake, for all your generous super chats this evening.
Even though maybe they don't need cereal because that's kind of like prime
it's probably
for
all expired.
cordyceps infections.
Yeah, all the flour and corn. Alrighty.
But crunch berries, I mean, that would kill any type of
gluten-free cereal is safe. All the celiac folks were probably the last to get cordyceps.
Maybe.
Rate season 2, 43% voted in 4 to 6 out of 10 range, 40% in the 7 to 8 out of 10 range, 11% in the 0 to 3 out of 10 range, and only 3% in 9 out of 10. And I think that's fair. I would probably, as I said, rate it 6.5. 6.5 to 7, because as I was saying, it's a beautiful show. The lighting, the cinematography, the set design, there are things about it that I've taken for granted that I think I forget are as stellar as they are. just because we're used to it now after season 1, and that's the expectation. But it's like, yeah, when you take a step back, the scenery, so many of these wide shots are amazing. And I still love that so many of the shots are literally, you feel like it's a cutscene in the game. Like Abby getting up off the couch in the very final scene of the finale, and you're walking from her third person behind her. I'm like, give me a controller. Like, we're about to start playing. So I'm the freak who liked the Game of Thrones ending. Not even sorry a little bit. Listen, Lord Insidious.
I'm happy for you.
The way I feel about the Game of Thrones finale is the way I also feel about The Last of Us Part 2. I might have feelings about it, but I freaking respect and love and admire when you're not afraid to make a bold decision that is going to risk pissing people off. I'd rather see something that's bold and crazy.
Bold with no payoff? With no bold but no satisfaction? In Last of Us 2, it's bold, but you get the satisfaction of a crazy revenge tour, and then it turns into, well, maybe you should.
Yeah, maybe there was nothing satisfying about
you get it's bold, but the whole game is built on it's so bold, and it's going to take this character so far, and you're going to go on that journey with them, and you're going to get that payoff. Game of Thrones, it was bold, but then it's like, well, for what purpose? There's no payoff.
That's why I'm like, I don't think
payoff. They made these bold decisions, but then everything that they had been building towards, there's no payoff.
Listen, I admire just not being afraid to make bold decisions in general, whether I agree with it or not, whether I think there's payoff or not is a different story. But I'd rather see someone do something bold than boring, and play it safe out of fear of pissing people off. You know, Game of Thrones finale will go down in history.
All of Game of Thrones was killing people off and doing crazy things that were gonna be like, leave people completely speechless and shocked and like, what? How could you do that? But that's part of the experience.
Lord Insidious.
So,
well,
just bold, like
just bold text. Well,
they didn't use enough bold font. That's why. Anyway, we don't need to talk.
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms. As a Last of Us newbie, will there be any other seasons? It is not over, Alice. There is at least going to be a 3rd season. Somebody asked if there's a playthrough of Part 2. Avian, we have one over on Tom's channel, not him. His channel is McBots. You can find it if you search McBots. Yeah, he just recently did a playthrough before, which I need to go back and watch. I think I want to just go watch cutscenes or something, to just draw some. Well, you told me not to do that before the 2nd season, so that I wouldn't be comparing it the whole time. So now I'm gonna go and do it after, now that it's over. Yeah. But no. I don't see the show recovering from this, says Steve. No, I have hope.
Yeah, Steve, I have hope. Because I'm unfortunately going where you are, Steve, because the second part of the story is so strong, but it's so strong because it's about Abby is now put through the absolute ringer when she gets back to Seattle, but she's put through the ringer for the purpose of making you realize that she is more human and more and has gone through more than Ellie has. And you're like, wow, you thought Ellie was suffering? No, not compared to everything that Abby goes through in this next game. And it's like, okay, you're going to have this powerful story that takes the villain of the story so far and turns her into the absolute hero. And it's such a swing that you feel that, but they haven't pulled the swing back far enough in the first season. And it's just going to, versus the game, it's like the swing is all the way up top and you let it go and you almost fall out of your seat on the other side. But for this one, they haven't pulled it back far enough. They haven't shoved enough gunpowder into the barrel.
I agree with Avian. I think it'll still be a redemption. I think a lot of only show watchers and not game players are still hating Abby. Like, I think a lot of people who've only watched the show and don't even know the full context and extent, even with the way that they altered it and kind of represented the story with her intentions right out of the gate and her backstory and her justification for everything she's done, I think a lot of people still hate her, like, are still mad at her.
Yeah. And we are very biased because we know what happens. Like we said earlier, there are plenty of videos out there of people losing their mind at episode 2 of this show.
Yeah.
That broke the internet for the few days afterwards, of people's reaction videos and the so many clips of, like, when your boyfriend didn't tell you what happened for 5 years since playing the game. Like, scarred. There are people are hit hard and heavy by what happened.
Yeah.
So it is still a powerful story, but we're coming from the lens of comparison, and I think, yeah, it's still great, and they're setting up the wolves and Isaac and the brutality. Like, it's going to be, I think, it's a steady crescendo of the first season, but it's not the same level of setup, because you already know that Ellie knows what happened in Utah. Ellie already knows the truth. The audience already knows the truth, that Ellie knows the truth, and we already know what Abby's motivation is. We already know why she was motivated to do what she did. So those 3 critical things we've already gotten. But part of the big payoff of Abby's story is that you realize who she is, why she did what she did. And you're hit with that after everything we've already seen in the show. So I think that I think it is going to be, it's going to be great moments and really tragic and sad story beats that we're going to get. But I think it's going to be this similar level of it's dampened from our viewing experience, since we know what had been happened in the
what had been happening
in the game. We know what had been happening in the game.
Daddy Josh, thank you so much. Remember, for 32 months.
Daddy.
Hail McBots. A McBots OG up in here. Part of McBots Global, McBots Worldwide.
Yes.
Anxiously awaiting that next merch drop. Also, is the second Last of Us game worth the money for anyone here who has played through it? I'll let you answer that.
Yes.
It is one of the best stories, best storytelling. The second game will always be there, and hopefully, not to say like hopefully this season will inspire people to go revisit the second game and, you know, see the differences, or maybe experience it for the first time again or ever. But if anything, the things that I'm maybe unhappy about with this season just have illuminated how brilliantly I think the second game told the story.
Yeah. The Last of Us 2 is one of the only single player games that I get regular cravings to go play it again.
Wow.
Like, I think often about, like, when I just want to sit down and play a good story single player game, Last of Us Part 2 is the game that comes into my head the most.
Dang.
Of any.
I never even knew that.
Even more than Last of Us, the first game. Even more than Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. Like,
bold. Speaking of bold font.
It's the game, the single player, if I'm just in the mood to sit down and spend a weekend just grinding a single player video game, Last of Us Part 2 is the game that I think about that will satisfy that itch, because it's the gameplay is fantastic, and the movement and the mechanisms and the actual, like, well, the gameplay itself is incredible, but it's also the graphics and the world. I think it honestly looks better than the show. Like, it feels more real than the show.
Wow.
Which is crazy to say that, but that's what I feel. And the immersiveness of the world of the game, and it's the challenge of it. And even though I've played that game now 3 times, I think 3 or 4 times all the way through, maybe 5, 3 or 4 or 5 times all the way through. It's so expansive and immersive that it and long. It's like one of the longest single player games
20
I've
hours.
played. Where you're gonna go through it and it's gonna be another whole experience. And you're gonna finish the end of it and it's gonna be worth the payoff. So and atmosphere, yes, Chris House Inc. Atmosphere is a great way to describe it. It is you are immersed into that world, and the atmosphere, it's a consistent feeling when you're in that world in snowy Jackson and rainy, thunderstormy, overgrown, jungly Seattle, and then sunny Southern California. Like you feel the world that you're in.
Yeah.
Even though we're in sunny California in real life, still like getting in there. Like after I played it the last time, I was like, should we go spend a weekend in Santa Barbara? I just want to go.
We still have to. We still never did do that.
So yes, would highly, highly, highly recommend playing the game. Even if you watch the show and know what happens, it's still worth playing the game because it's a great gaming experience, hands down.
That's quite an answer. Thank you. Thank you again, Daddy Josh, and thank you to Avian. Many thanks, Avian350, for all of your interaction and commentary tonight. It's been great to discuss and hear from you. If you had to choose between playing Last of Us Only Forever or getting a Battlefront 3, Alice!
Battlefront 3, Alice. Throw everything I just said out the window if it's between Last of Us 2 and Battlefront 3.
Stop.
The reason I've only played Last of Us 2 4 or 5 times is because multiplayer games are where it's at for me. I've got like 1,500 hours in Battlefront 2. I have over 1,000 hours in Fortnite. I've only played Last of Us 2 4 times. 80 hours compared to thousands. Battlefront 3 all the way. It's not close.
Well, on that note, we know where Tom stands. It's an interesting way to end this discussion. And once
Let's
again,
go Battlefront 3. Come
apologies, y'all, that we did zero coverage of the second season, while it was actually actively airing. Throughout the past few months. Like I said, we were pretty much backlogged and behind. We were like 4 weeks behind after Star Wars Celebration Japan back in April. So I obviously wasn't filming reactions, but wanted to just come in and share, to give a little bit of a critique, because I knew we both have mixed thoughts. And this is probably, again, it's the most I've ever maybe not been as happy with the way the season panned out, but again, it's allowed me to go back and look back at what I think the game did so beautifully and what makes the game so rare, and why I truly think it will go down as a testament to storytelling. But like I said, I think if anything, I can end this with just I'm still hopeful and optimistic for season 3. So we will see. We'll still get locked in, and maybe I'll actually film reactions for that one if it's not coming out right around Celebration 2027, y'all. In which case, I'll be backlogged yet again. But if that's not the case, then we'll see, and I'll try to do more diligent coverage of it next time around. So sorry about that, and sorry that
we should ask Craig when we saw him. I'm like, yo, what's the schedule for
it was Sunday night too. It was like hours before the finale. You should have stopped him. I had no idea it was him.
It was Sunday. I thought it was Saturday.
He walked right behind me, and Tom shook me afterwards.
It was Sunday. Yeah, I didn't say anything to you.
Yeah.
It was a crowded street. It was a busy street. I don't want to make a scene.
Yeah. Next time. Now we know.
Yeah.
No. But thank you guys so very much for watching this, for being very active. Sorry we were not doing so much response with the chat tonight. I might try to keep that going. That was a first for me, of actually trying to type responses to you guys while Tom's going off.
Yeah, because
sharing his thoughts.
When I start talking, she has a sensor in her head, and it's like, all right, there's been noise coming out of his mouth for 5 seconds, so ears. She has this incredible power to just completely shut off her ear canals, or dislot, unplug the processing.
I just don't want everyone in the chat to think they're being neglected when you're going off on a 10-minute tangent. That's all.
Eardrum and brain, like.
All right, I'm not gonna propaganda. I'm not gonna stand for this slander about my brain waves shutting off after a 5-minute period of Tom's mouth going.
It's fact.
No, it's because I didn't. We weren't being as responsive. We both had a lot to say. We both hadn't even talked much about the show with each other. Like you said, you freaking just stormed off the couch and went to bed last night. So we still had to unpack.
I stormed off because of this song they played in the credits.
All right, you had your chance.
You're gonna end it on that cliffhanger, and then into day 2.
I'm trying to end it now, y'all.
And it's like this incredibly emotional moment. And then I completely blacked out what the song even was. But it started playing, and I was like,
I think it was.
What is this? Like,
was it Creed?
The Black Keys?
No,
Like,
it's.
It wasn't Creed.
I think it was.
Was it Creed?
Follow me into. Hang on.
No, that's not Creed. That's actually, that is Creed.
I think it is.
No, Soundgarden.
Oh, okay, I lied. Sorry.
Like,
Okay, dang it.
It's like the Andor trailer. It's like they went for a real song, which there's real music in this game, so it's totally different. But they went for the lyrics of a modern day song. But this is like it yanked me out. I was like, oh wow, okay, yeah, they hit this with the ending. Then we get Abby in the Seahawks stadium, and it's go time, and then it's like, okay, now we're like up and hippity hoppity, like
It's meant to get you while you're down, while your brain blasted.
Upbeat, like alternative, crunge, rock.
Grunge,
Cringy crunge, rock.
That grungy rock.
And it's like complete, yank it out. Just ripped me straight out of it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to bed. So again, it's like the Andor trailer. They were going for the lyrics and the message in the song. And like the Andor trailer, we spent a lot of time of that Dork Discourse talking about how I am not a lyrical person. I don't know the lyrics to any single song other than like ABCs or Yellow Submarine by the Beatles or the Star Spangled Banner. Star Spangled Banner is number 1 in that order, of course. Or Tequila. Those are like the only songs where I know every single lyric to. For me, it's about the tone and the instrumentals and the feeling you get while listening to the music. Not, oh, I need to know all the lyrics so that I can sing all lyrics and I understand the writing behind the song. It's about the tone and the feeling. So when it's this dark, intense moment to end the show, and literally one of the main characters just got shot brutally in the face, and then we got the villain who shot that person having an epic villain standoff moment in the stadium, and then it cuts to Soundgarden shredding, and it's follow me. It's like, what is going on?
All right. On that note,
Anyway.
my brain turned off.
Again, I just sang like the tone of the voice. I don't know the lyrics. Besides, I think he says,
you got it.
Me.
You got the first 3 words. Okay. You gotta unplug the processor. Yeah, this droid is malfunctioning. We're gonna go recalibrate. Thank you so much for joining us. What a way to end this stream. Thank you guys so much for being here. Appreciate it. Rebellions are built on blood pudding. Don't forget it, y'all. Maybe I'll do a cat cooks. I'm thinking about it. I'm really tempted. We will see. But until then, thank you so very much for joining us for this week's installment of
Yes.
Dork Discourse. We'll wait and see what happens. Yeah, we still love The Last of Us, y'all. Don't get it twisted. We still love it. We just had a lot to unpack. So thank you for joining us.
Play the second game and the first game if you haven't.
Thank you for joining us for this almost 2-hour session. We are gonna go. That's maybe the only perk of Andor not being in our lives anymore, that we can rant for longer. We're no longer constrained to the hour. So yes, thank you, Danny, for being here. Thank you, Film Goer, Daddy Josh, Charlie, Stanley's, Alice, Lord Insidious, Avian, if you're still here, a Film Goer, everybody who's been here. Sean, thank you also very much for joining. And as always, if you've been lurking in the shadows and not interacting in the chat, we still love you just as much. So thank you, everybody. Sorry if I missed your name and roll call. I appreciate it, but we still love you equally. We still appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining. We hope you have a great rest of your day, night, morning, evening, 3 a.m., wherever you may be. And we will see you guys again very, very soon. Bye, friends.
Later, everybody.